Hey, it's me again. I am doing a video buffet, kind of, or maybe it was a smorgasbord, or I can't remember what I called it yesterday. I'm doing one video a week. And my second video, the one for today, is one that I should have made like months ago, probably back in November. One of the people who I subscribe to and am friendly with is Forkerball, also known as Ian. A lot of you guys know him as Ian. He is a great guy, makes videos on the regular, really funny, great self-deprecating humor. And he made a couple of videos actually last year on his top 10 favorite sci-fi movies and his top 10 favorite comic book movies. And I really wanted to do a response to that, but for whatever reason I just didn't get around to it. Couldn't work up the sheer will it takes to turn on a camera and start talking to it. But I'm doing that today. So I've got a link to his two videos in the description below if you'd like to check them out. But let me tell you a little bit about my choices here. Again, top 10 favorite sci-fi science fiction movies and top 10 favorite comic book movies. And he was very particular about his science fiction not actually being like action movies with sci-fi elements, basically. He disqualified Aliens. Now, I personally wouldn't disqualify Aliens because although it is principally an action movie, the sci-fi elements for me make it sci-fi, so we just sort of have that little disagreement there. I, for one, think Gravity is not a science fiction movie because although it's fictional, none of the technology in the movie is fictional. You know, space shuttles, spacesuits exist. There's no teleportation or hyperspace or anything like that, no time travel. So the characters are fictional and the situation is fictional, the technology isn't, which makes it basically an action movie or survival movie in space. So, a little difference of opinion there. Let me start with the comic book movies. Honorable mentions: Batman Returns by Tim Burton, Josie and the Pussycats, which is by the, I can't remember, one of them's name is Elf, and I can't remember the co-directors. They did a comedy called Can't Hardly Wait. Really kind of clever movie. X-Men First Class, amongst the X-Men movies, it's one of my favorites. Ghost World, which is adapted from a non-action comic book movie, kind of like Josie and the Pussycats. And Sin City, which I have right here. This is one of my favorite DVD sets of all time. It's a non-Blu-ray, but still, it's great. A lot of great special features on it, and you know, just the movie itself is really awesome. And it's like one of my favorite DVD sets right there. So, the top 10. Number 10, Superman 2. I think maybe Superman 1 is a better movie overall, but Superman 2 has those great moments that really really make you like the characters a lot. For example, the scenes between Lois and Superman after she discovers that he's actually Clark Kent. Those are great scenes. Just the whole sort of the development of their relationship is awesome. And also, you know, he's fighting the three Kryptonian supervillains. You've got General Zod, Nan, and Ursa, and a lot of their scenes are really lots of fun. And it's got that killer moment at the end, which I won't spoil for you if you haven't seen it, but, you know, please do check it out because it's so great. The final bit between Superman and Zod and the other Kryptonians is just like one of my favorite things ever. Oh my goodness, it was so incredible to see that happen when I was a kid, when the movie came out in the early 80s. Number 9, X-Men, the first X-Men film by Bryan Singer that came out in 2000. Just a really solid movie. Comparatively low budget, you know. Obviously the X-Men movies and comic book movies have gotten much bigger and more grandiose since then. But it's just really solid, very well plotted movie, you know, it's got good performances, it's just really solid. A lot of the X-Men movies that I like, but they have their flaws, their flab, whatever, things that just don't make sense or just hit me the wrong way, you know. But the first X-Men movie, really great. Love it. Number 8, Iron Man 3. A lot of people hate this movie, especially comic book fans. They don't like what happens in this movie. They don't like what Shane Black, the writer-director, did with the Mandarin. Okay, fine. You know, that's you. Me, I'm not like into the comic books themselves. I just basically see the movies, and you know, Iron Man 3 is a really fun movie. I love the twist involving the Mandarin. I really do. I love the dialogue. Of course, I love Shane Black in particular. You know, he's just a great writer. And this is a super fun movie. I love it. Number 7, Mystery Men. Mystery Men is a comedy which came out in 1999. It's directed by somebody named Kinka Usher. I'm not really sure what else that guy has done, but this is basically more of a, a straight-out comedic film. You've got Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, and Hank Azaria, who are trying to put together their own superhero team. They recruit a couple of the people, including Janine Garofalo. Each one has sort of like weird, offbeat powers, and they're going up against a villain played by Jeffrey Rush, whose name is Casanova Frankenstein. And they're also they're trying to also sort of, they're standing in the shadow of the actual superhero of the place they live, which is played by Greg Kinnear. What's his name? Amazing, yeah, Captain Amazing, right? That's his name. Yeah, it's a really, really fun movie. All the actors in it are really funny. Paul Rubens is in it. Wes Studi plays sort of like mentor character who says nothing but cliches. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's not really like a big action-oriented movie. It's a comedy, but it's terrific. Let's see. So number 6. Am I in number 6 yet? I think I am. Good. Captain America, The Winter Soldier. I actually have the disc of this one right here. Some of these I have on disc, but a lot of them I don't. This is a fantastic movie, really well plotted. And I really love the way that their relationship between Cap and Black Widow sort of develops further, especially in Civil War. This is just a really great suspense movie. There's some great twists in it. It's lots of fun. Really, really like this movie a lot. Of course, it's directed by the Bros, the brothers, whatever their names are, the co-directors. They're doing the Infinity War movies. Really, really terrific movie. Number 5, The Mask. The Mask is a 1994 movie starring Jim Carrey. He basically discovers this mask that has supernatural powers. When he puts it on, he turns basically into this sort of trickster character. Actually, his name is Loki, I think. I think that's the name of the god whose spirit inhabits this mask. And he's able to do all kinds of amazing things. He becomes a live-action cartoon already, even more so than Jim Carrey already was at the time. Cameron Diaz, this was like her big debut, and the villain is played by Peter Green. He's a really good villain, and just the special effects are fun. It's just a really, really fun movie, and it's also really well scripted. It just works really well. Love it. It's just a terrific movie. Don't have that one on disc, though. Number 4, Joss Whedon's first Avengers movie from 2012. This is another really well-written movie. The payoffs in this are great. The set pieces are great. The dialogue is all really funny. Yeah, terrific. All the guys coming together, squabbling and fighting with each other, then, finally coming together as a team to take on Loki and all the invaders in New York. Really, really terrific movie. Great ending. Love the last shot of the movie. Love so much about this movie. Could watch it over and over again, and in fact, I have. Number 3, V for Vendetta, which is adapted from the Alan Moore written comic book, although you won't find his name in the credits because he hates movies and he wants comics to stay comics. Too bad, Alan Moore. This is a fantastic adaptation. Just a fantastic adaptation. Really sort of taking the guts of the book and really sort of boiling them down to a 2-hour movie. Just fantastic. It was written and produced by the Wachowskis, but it was directed by a guy named James Teague, or James Teague. I forget exactly. I know it's on here. Yeah, McTeague, sorry. He went and did this John Cusack movie called The Raven. Anyway, Natalie Portman, of course, is the main character. Hugo Weaving plays the guy in the mask. What a great movie. What was very, very well written. It's not really an action movie. It's got some action in it for the most part. It's very dialogue-driven, very story-driven, and it's fantastic. Just a really, really fantastic movie. I love it. Another one of those movies I could watch over and over again. Number 2, very recent entry, Civil War, Captain America Civil War, or Avengers 2.5. A lot of people call this one. Really, the emotional development of the characters and the way their relationships sort of come into conflict with each other in the end is just great. I mean, there's this big set piece involving all the heroes fighting each other at the airport, but the ending for me is really sort of the guts of it. This central conflict that comes between the two main characters, which is so much more emotionally resonant than seeing them just take on a huge CGI army of robots or aliens or whatever. Those are fun. This one really makes an impact, and it's just a terrific movie overall. Again, it's directed by the Russos, right, the Russo brothers. Couldn't remember their name for a second there. Fantastic movie. Immediately, I was just like, man, I can't believe they actually made a Marvel movie better than the Avengers. But yeah, I think this is. Finally, number 1, my favorite comic movie of all time, and one of my favorite movies of all time. directed by Christopher Nolan, Batman Begins. The one Batman movie in which Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, is actually the most important character in the movie and doesn't get upstaged by any of his villains, such as Catwoman, or the Joker, or Mr. Freeze, or the Riddler, played by Jim Carrey in the Schumacher movie. Yeah, again, really well-written movie, terrific script, great performances across the board. Katie Holmes is a sticking point for some people. Maybe I don't quite buy her as a DA, but I definitely do buy her as Bruce Wayne's conscience. The one who is basically telling him to do the right thing, basically. Yeah, just, you know, the score is amazing. I love the score. One of my favorite Hans Zimmer scores. Yeah, when I saw this movie, I realized it was the Batman movie that I've been waiting for all my life because I'd watched Batman as a kid, you know, the 1960s series with Adam West. But I was never really satisfied, not really satisfied with any of the Batman movies that came out so far. This one was awesome. I know a lot of people go, oh, The Dark Knight is the best. Like, no, Dark Knight has some problems. And this one has some problems too, but they don't jump out at me and go boo the way that The Dark Knight does. The Dark Knight's like, I'm like, why do they do that? Whereas Batman Begins, I kind of go, oh, well, that didn't make sense later on, but it didn't bother me. Yeah, fantastic movie. Christopher Nolan, love the guy. Great, great, great film. Now, science fiction movies. Inner Space. Inner Space is a 1987 comedy with Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. Dennis Quaid gets shrunk down into a little submersible pod and gets injected into Martin Short's bloodstream, and they start talking to each other and going on an adventure. What a great movie. Joe Dante directed it. Really, really fun. At one point I had like the entire movie memorized, and so I could recite the whole thing from beginning to end, I think. Yeah, so much fun. Great score, and just one of the most fun movies you could ever see. E.T. by Steven Spielberg. Man, this would have been like on my top 10 list if there weren't so many other really great sci-fi movies. E.T. has been a movie that I've always loved, but sort of has dropped a little in my you know, in sort of like its filmmaking, but I still love it. I mean, I still, you know, can't get enough of it. It's great. Dark City. Dark City is Alex Proyas, and of course this is like the director's cut without the Kiefer Sutherland narration that bothers some people, kind of like Blade Runner, I guess. But yeah, this is a movie that's got a very, very interesting mystery to it, and I was super intrigued by this movie, and I got really, really emotional during a few key points in this movie, which doesn't happen a lot. And so yeah, this came out in '98. Yeah, and I love it. It's a terrific movie. Another really good score from this movie as well. Rufus Sewell is the main character. He wakes up in this hotel room. He has no memory. He's wandering around wondering what's going on in the city where the sun never seems to rise. William Hurt is in this movie. Jennifer Connelly is in this film as well. Terrific, terrific mystery. The Terminator, the original Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and James Cameron directing, came out in 1984. Linda Hamilton is told by this guy from the future that she's going to bear the son of the... her son will basically become like the leader of the resistance against the evil machines that rise up and try to wipe out humanity, and so he must be born, and this Terminator character comes back in time to kill her before that can happen, and his job is to protect her, and of course... you remember what happens there. Really, you know, always like this movie a lot. It's a bit cheesy in some parts. You know, it's a very, very low budget sci-fi movie. But yeah, just you know, the meat of it is just so great. Yeah, it's always, and the Terminator's always been, you know, a good scary character, you know, just sort of stalking after you and limping along after it gets all its flesh burned off. It's really cool. Brazil by Terry Gilliam. That's a really, just a really exciting movie with all the production design and just sort of like Terry Gilliam's version of what the future is like. It's very satirical and fun. Jonathan Pryce is the main character. He's this guy working in an office who just finds a lot of comfort in routine and bureaucracy and paperwork and everything like that. But he fantasizes about being an adventurer, and he gets the chance, but things really don't turn out the way he expected them to. Robert De Niro is also in this movie as a supporting part. It's definitely one of my favorite Terry Gilliam films. A sci-fi movie from 1997 called Abre los Ojos, which in English means open your eyes, and this was adapted into, it was remade basically as Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise. But I prefer the original. It's directed by Alejandro Amenabar, who went on to do The Others with Nicole Kidman. And I was so floored by this movie. This movie really had me in its grip. I actually started watching this movie about 2 a.m. after being out at a bar all night, and I actually stayed up and watched the whole thing because I was so intrigued. Basically, you have this guy who has this, he's fallen in love with this woman played by Penelope Cruz, who also played the same part in the remake, but things just sort of go haywire, and he questions reality, and he gets brought up on murder charges, and for some reason he's wearing like a mask to cover his face because of something that happened to him. Really, really interesting movie, and some really great twists in it. I really like the movie a lot. I mentioned before Aliens. I really think that Aliens belongs in the sci-fi, not action category, although it is definitely an action movie. My favorite James Cameron movie. James Cameron's best movie. And of course that's when Ripley goes along with all the Marines back to the planet from the first movie to try and save whatever humans are left there after an alien attack, and of course things don't go well for them. Terrific movie. John Carter of Mars. A not very well liked movie for the most part. I think it's really amazing. I love the effects. I love the story. It's just great overall. It's directed by Andrew Stanton, and it's got a really bad reputation and lost a huge amount of money for Disney. But hey, I don't work for Disney, so I don't care that it didn't make money. I just care if it's a good movie or not, and it is. It made my top 10 list of 2012. Being John Malkovich is Spike Jonze directed film. He did Her. He did Adaptation with Nicolas Cage, and it's just really, really bizarre movie. Great premise. One of those movies that I tried to know as little about beforehand, and it was great. It's very, very inventive. The main character is John Cusack. He works in this office where he discovers a doorway which leads into the brain, in a sense, of the character actor John Malkovich, who you probably remember from Con Air and In the Line of Fire and some other stuff. And he's actually able to look at the world through his eyes for like 15 minutes. And so he turns into a business. He gets people to pay money to walk through this door and look through John Malkovich's eyes for 15 minutes. And that's it. That's the whole thing. It's just really, really bizarre. But funny. Catherine Keener, Cameron Diaz are also in this movie, and of course John Malkovich plays a fictionalized version of himself, which is really, really funny. Serenity. Serenity is the spin-off of the TV series Firefly by Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon, of course, did Avengers 1 and 2 as well. And this is a terrific movie. Came out in 2005. Made my best of the year list. Yeah, I mean, I'd seen the series, and I enjoyed it for the most part, but, you know, the movie itself, really, really solid. Really enjoyed it quite a lot. And it's the whole ensemble, basically, all the principal actors, as the crew on the ship Serenity, dealing with some really heavy stuff that's happening in their part of the galaxy. Deja Vu, which is a Tony Scott movie with Denzel Washington, involves some time travel. Another movie which I didn't expect to get as emotional about it in the end as I did, kind of like Dark Sea. That's definitely going to come up later on in this list right here. Val Kilmer and Bruce Greenwood are in it. They're trying to hunt down a terrorist who has blown up a ferry by looking back into the past, using technology to look back a few days and trying to figure out, you know, who this guy was. And how did they catch him, even though the ferry bombing happened days ago. It's a really, really clever movie. Pitch Black. Pitch Black is the first Riddick movie with Vin Diesel. And that's directed by David Twohy, who went on to do 2 more Riddick movies. But Pitch Black is really, really great. Visually, it's just very arresting. The way they shoot and color the movie is just really exciting, and it's just a good action thriller overall. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Chronicles of Riddick, but the third movie, which is simply called Riddick, is also really good. So, now that I've got through all my honorable mentions, here's my top 10. Under the Skin, which was my favorite movie of 2014. Scarlett Johansson plays an alien who is basically finding single men, basically wandering around the streets of, I guess they're in Glasgow, it takes place in Scotland, and talks to them, and invites them to take a ride with her, and then she brings her back to this house where they get their internal organs sucked out or something like that. It's a really, really strange movie. Very atmospheric. Just the whole thing is just like very, very odd and ominous. It's a great movie. Really terrific. Oh shoot, I have a Pixar movie on here, WALL-E. Well, if WALL-E's on here, then The Incredibles can definitely be on here, except is The Incredibles science fiction? I think it is. Maybe I should have thought of this more carefully. Okay, forget about The Incredibles for a second, okay? That's a great movie, but WALL-E is even better. WALL-E is, of course, about the robot that's stuck on the planet and falls in love with a droid that comes along looking for plant life. You know, it's very, very sort of a non-verbal visual storytelling, but really, really fun, very exciting. I wish I had the disc of that. That's actually a really, really fun movie. But it's on TV pretty regularly, so whenever it's on, I'm just like, oh yeah, WALL-E! Number 9, Starship Troopers. This is like a reissue disc, so there isn't any really great artwork on there. But as you can see, that's basically a giant alien bug claw grasping onto a giant spaceship, which doesn't actually happen because the bugs, none of the bugs are actually that big. Paul Verhoeven, who did RoboCop and Total Recall, directed this movie. Really, really strange movie. Just the tone of it is just really bizarre. All the main characters are like wannabe Nazis. You know, they are big fans of the fascist civilization that they live in and want to just be a part of fighting, you know, fighting for humanity and everything like that. I've always thought of this as sort of a propaganda movie, kind of like Top Gun. If this civilization actually existed, it would be like their recruitment poster. It's pretty cheesy. Everyone's sort of blandly good looking, and the satire is really, really great as well. Special effects are awesome as well. This came out in '97, and it lost the Best Visual Effects Oscar to Titanic. But it was sort of a flop anyway. You know, it just didn't do all that well. It's a greatly admired movie, and I'm a big fan of it. Next, I think this is, what is this, 7? Children of Men. Children of Men is directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It takes place in the future. Humanity has not been able to have any children for almost 20 years, and so civilization has sort of descended into chaos. And Clive Owen gets recruited by Julianne Moore to transport a woman to safety beyond the borders of a city, but as it turns out, she's actually the first woman in who knows how long that's actually carrying a baby and could, you know, deliver a baby, and so they want to get her to safety so they can study her medically and figure out why she was able to get pregnant, whereas so many other women couldn't. Alfonso Cuarón's a fantastic director. He has done some amazing work, you know, and this is, you know, technically a marvelous movie. So well made, just you know, as far as just the extended shots and the visual effects, but it's also just a really compelling story as well. Fantastic. I'm sorry if I'm saying fantastic too much. I might be reminding you of a certain presidential to-be person. Number 6, Inception. I used to have this on disc. I don't anymore. Sorry. That's Christopher Nolan, of course. Fantastic. You know, wonderful movie. So exciting. So innovative. One of those movies where I just sat there going, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe how wonderful it was, how exciting. Yeah, I'm running out of superlatives here, but it's terrific. You already know what it's about. Leonardo DiCaprio's working for this guy to plant an idea into Cillian Murphy's head. He's got a whole team working for him. Love it. What a great movie. 12 Monkeys. Don't have this one anymore on disc. Terry Gilliam, as I mentioned earlier, is the director of Brazil. He did this time travel movie involving Bruce Willis being sent into the past by this team of scientists to find out what the source of a virus is and get a pure sample so they can figure out how to cure it, because most of humanity is dead in the future of the virus. Really, you know, certain time travel movies are just so well written and everything fits together so well. And 12 Monkeys is one of them. And really super emotional ending. Oh my goodness, I could not help myself. It was so emotional in the end. Yeah, Bruce Willis, of course, the main character. Brad Pitt, Madeline Stowe, Christopher Plummer, all this in it. Love it. Love the movie. Number 4, The Empire Strikes Back. Best Star Wars movie ever. Until maybe episode 8. We'll see about that. Yeah, Empire Strikes Back. Don't need to go into that. You all know what that's about. It's you know, a wonderful movie. And is certain people's favorite movie of all time. Number 3, RoboCop. This is my only steelbook. Paul Verhoeven, again, director of Starship Troopers and Total Recall. It's a modern-day Frankenstein story with a futuristic sci-fi twist, basically. This guy, a cop, gets killed and then resurrected, and he becomes this machine, mostly machine person, who works for a company, basically, but he decides he doesn't want to work for the company. He wants to enforce justice on his own terms, and so they have to deal with him, and he has to deal with them. I love it. I love this movie. It's been one of my favorite movies for a very, very long time. In fact, it was one of my favorite movies before I actually saw it. just because of what it was about, and I couldn't wait to see it. Like, I had to wait like a whole year because I was too young to go to the theater to see it because it's super violent and bloody. Yeah. Number 2, The Fly, one of my favorite movies ever. It's like number 5 on my all-time favorite movies list. Yeah, a tragic love story involving a guy who invents a teleporter, but then something goes wrong and he begins to disintegrate physically, and he becomes very, very desperate to save himself somehow. Jeff Goldblum's the main character, and Gina Davis, who they used to be married, and she is like, in real life, I mean, they used to be married. And she's basically the journalist who's been chronicling his experiment. He asks her to write a book about it, and then he falls in love with her, and she doesn't want to be around him because of what's happening to him, but she also just can't help but, you know, feel concerned for what's happening to him. It's a tragic movie, but it's great. It's a great movie. David Cronenberg directed it. Definitely my favorite David Cronenberg movie. Love that movie. Just blew me away. I saw this movie, I think, when I was like 14 years old, and it really made a huge impact on me. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but, you know, I've looked for elements of that movie in so many other science fiction movies that I see. Something came out recently that I was kind of hoping would be a lot like, oh yeah, Passengers. Passengers could have been the tragic sci-fi love story or what have you, but they really messed that movie up quite a bit, and so I'd say, no. So that's number 2. Number 1, Back to the Future, the original Back to the Future by Robert Zemeckis. Again, the script is perfect. All the casting choices are absolutely perfect. The music, the comedy, you know, the twists and everything like that. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful movie, and it's like number 2 on my favorite movies of all time list, just below Goodfellas, which is number 1. Marty, teenager, knows an inventor, basically Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and he's invented a time machine, and due to some shenanigans, he ends up getting sent back 30 years to when his parents were teenagers, and possibly disrupts his own existence. Because if they don't get together, of course, they'll never give birth to him, and he's in super duper trouble if that happens. What a fun movie, you know, all the dialogue is just so very clever, so very carefully written and constructed. The score, Alan Silvestri's score, he's great. You know, everything about this movie is absolutely wonderful. It's my number 1. And it just so happens, I have Ian's list right here. I copied it down. And he's got a few movies on his list that I didn't. He's got Interstellar, Blade Runner, Ex Machina, District 9, the original Planet of the Apes, as some of the sci-fi movies that he chose. For his comic book movies, he chose Dread with Kyle Urban. He has The Dark Knight on here. He has Ant-Man, Blade. But as it happens, his number 1 favorite comic book movie, and my number 1 favorite comic book movie, and his number 1 favorite sci-fi movie, and my number 1 favorite sci-fi movie are the exact same movies. Yeah! I promise I didn't, you know, change my list to do that. It's, you know, if you look back on my previous videos, you'll see I'm talking about these movies all the time on my favorites list. And so, Ian, you and I are of the same mind. Your favorite, my favorite, we're all our favorites. They're great movies. No one can deny it. It's totally awesome. So, like I said, Ian's videos are in the link below if you'd like to check them out. Thank you very much for watching. And I know this is kind of long, but I'm going to have a new video tomorrow. See you then. Later.